A quick introduction to the Passé Composé en français. So the Passé Composé is the first past tense that we're going to be looking at this year. It translates to meaning the composed past. So it's called the composed past because this verb is made up of two or more words. So we're going to start with the two-word versions. Okay, that means that every single time I ask you to find the verb of a passé composé sentence, you're going to highlight or underline or mark somehow two words. So for example, if I have that first sentence, j'ai parlé français, I spoke French. If I ask you to find the verb of that sentence, you're going to tell me a parler. That entire bolded section, both words, go together to make up the verb. Same thing in our second sentence. So, nous avons pris un café. So, we had a coffee. If I tell you, hey, what's the verb of this sentence? You're going to tell me avons pris. Both words go together to form the passé composé. The first one of those two words is called the auxiliary verb. It's also sometimes called the helping verb. We're going to primarily call it auxiliary verb. That's the official grammatical term for it. But in like elementary school English classes and things like that, you may have heard of helping verbs. Those are the same thing. The auxiliary verb of the passé composé is always either avoir or être conjugated in the present tense. Your second word is the past participle. The past participle is the only part of the verb that is unique to the infinitive being used. Every single verb in the entire French language, the auxiliary will be either avoir or être. So the only way that we can tell these verbs apart is by the different past participles. If I tell you that a verb is an avoir verb, which is a huge majority of French verbs, seriously, there are only two sets of verbs that are not avoir verbs, and we'll be looking at both of those sets of verbs over the course of this semester, or over the course of the school year, excuse me. One of them will do this semester, one of them will do next semester. If you aren't sure if a verb is an avoir verb or not, you should always pick avoir because that's like 98% of French verbs. All that means is that they take avoir as the auxiliary. So when you go to conjugate these verbs in the passé composé, first you'll conjugate avoir in the present tense, and then you'll add the past participle. That means that the only thing that changes in between the different subjects is avoir. So at the bottom of your screen, you see the passé composé conjugation of the verb parler, to speak. So I spoke, j'ai parlé, you spoke, tu as parlé, he spoke, il a parlé, we spoke, nous avons parlé, you spoke, vous avez parlé, and they spoke, ils ont parlé. You can see that the parler, the past participle, is the same on all six. The only thing that changes is that conjugation of avoir. So how do we find that past participle? We're going to start off looking at ER verbs. Okay. A vast majority of regular ER verbs are going to form the past participle in a pretty regular way. So we're going to drop the ER to find the stem, just like we're conjugating any other verb tense. So far we've learned the present tense. Only this time, instead of adding different endings to match different subjects, we're just going to add an E accent aigu. So if we look back at that conjugation of parler, the past participle doesn't change regardless of the subject. So this is the only word we need. We'll just use that word for every single one of our 6 conjugations. The other interesting part about this is because ER and E accent aigu are both pronounced A, you actually can't hear the difference. So the infinitive parler has the past participle parler. The infinitive trouver has the past participle trouver. It's mostly a spelling difference. We cannot hear it when we're speaking or listening.